You can use the import range function in Sheets to grab data that you have in one spreadsheet and pull it over to another spreadsheet. That's going to mean that anytime that original data gets updated and tweaked or added to, the sheets that you've pulled it into are going to reflect that change. So you're only updating things once, which is kind of handy. We're going to combine that with the named range feature and make things a little easier. So let's see what that's going to look like here. I have a sheet here that has a fake list of students and their email addresses because, of course, the data we collect from, say, a Google form when it's in that quiz mode pulls in the students' email addresses rather than their names. So I also have here some quiz results with that exact issue. Here we go. I want to know who all these kids are that got all these different answers on my little fun quiz that I created for them. So to do that, I'm going to create a column here for names by just right-clicking and inserting to the left. We'll call it name. But in this particular spreadsheet, of course, I don't actually have those names. I have to come back to my first spreadsheet I have open here, where all the names exist. Now, I mentioned named ranges at the beginning. There's a separate video on that, so I won't spend too much time explaining that if I just click and select all of my students here, and give them a name up here in the name box, like my class, I'm going to be able to reference that name now whenever I need to. So I'm going to come back to my quiz results for a moment. I'm going to make myself a new sheet. So down the lower corner here, we have a little plus symbol that I can use and hit that to add a new sheet. I'll maybe call that students. There we go. Now I want to import all of my students here. So I'm going to click on equals import range. Open the bracket, and it wants to know the spreadsheet URL, the actual address of the spreadsheet that I'm about to pull in here. So I'll come back to the first tab I had open, and this is what it's referring to, the actual ugly address at the top of my page here. Now, when I look at it, I don't need the edit stuff at the end here. So everything to the left of the word edit. I'm just going to go ahead and highlight all of that. I'm going to right click and copy that. Come back to my quiz results here where it's waiting for me, and when I click into this little address bar here, I can just paste in the address. Now, when I look at the sample, I realize quickly, oop, it needs quotation marks around it. So I want to make sure that right before the HTTPS, I put in my little quotation marks, and then at the very end, I quote as well. There we go. Comma. And the next thing it wants to know is what range, what bunch of cells from that other sheet am I going to need? Well, normally I'd have to go back to that sheet and start looking at the tab, type in the sheet name, the cell references, A1 to whatever, but in this case, all I'm going to do is quotation my class, because that's what I named those cells already. Keeps that part simple. And that's all there is to it on this particular formula. It just wants to know what sheet you're looking at and what cells you want. I can close that bracket and hit enter. Well, now, when I click on this, what's my error? Access. Like anything in Google Sheets and Google Drive, it just needs permission to actually access that other file. I'm going to click the blue button, and there's all my data. So now I've got this information being imported from this previous sheet. Perfect. Well, when I come back to my form responses, I'm going to use the Vlookup formula here. So I say equal Vlookup, open that bracket. I want you to search for this email address. So I click that cell, comma, and the range I want you to look at is over here, students, and you can look at these cells right here, comma. In this case, it wants to know what is the index, so which column of that group of cells I just grabbed is it going to spit back at me? Well, I want the information it finds in the second column, so 2, comma. Last option here is optional. It says, is this sorted? Well, not really, no. So I'm going to say false. Close that bracket, hit enter. And it drops Obi-Wan in there for me. So let's just make extra sure. Is he 3333? I go back to my students, and there he is right there, 3333. Perfect. I'm going to go to form responses, grab that formula, and just drag it down. Now in this case, I did mess with some of my options here. In fact, what I did, I'll just undo that real quick. What I need to do is make sure that my cell values here are not going to change. So this gets into absolute and relative cell references here. I want to make sure that A1 to B17 is always what it looks like. So I'm going to throw in the little dollar signs there and hit enter. And this time it's even smart enough to realize what's going on and suggest an autofill. Perfect. So now all of my students have all been dropped in there and I know exactly what everybody answered. So there's a whole bunch of things all at once there using a named range, an import range, and even a Vlookup formula. But it means that anytime I adjust those student names or add new students, I'm going to be able to use import range and bring that data into any of my other test results very, very quickly. And then use that in any way that I need, whether I'm looking up names, I'm looking up parents, I'm looking up previous scores. It just depends on what's on that first sheet that I'm actually importing. But I'll be able to sort of look and compare and make use of all that data anytime I need it.